my best friend of mine just passed.
Nate Northington said the loss of his best friend Will C. earlier this year motivated him to open up about his instrumental role in integrating the SEC.
Like it's something that I've been thinking about doing for some time. And
Northington said he was initially reluctant to go to UK, but he was invited to a dinner at the governor's mansion with his family and Jim Gray, his high school coach at Thomas Jefferson, that changed the course of his thinking.
The selling point that what it would be like to really be the first, African American. It would be good for, African Americans to integrate the SEC. It would be good for me personally, to, if I was going to live in the state, what it would do for me as professionally after I finished playing football. And, it was just the right thing to do, and just felt that I, with my, aptitude, intelligence, football ability, that I was a person that probably could pull it off.
Unfortunately, Northington's career at UK went nothing like he planned. He suffered a shoulder injury while playing on the freshman team that plagued him throughout his time at UK. There was racial tension, and there was the tragic death of his comrade and the isolation he felt afterwards. Northington was the only member of the 1967 UK football team that got to see Greg Page after that tragic practice, and it was tough. The once strapping Page was down to around 140 pounds. He was on a respirator and couldn't communicate, and he was a quadriplegic.
And that's what he was. He was paralyzed from, I think he said from the nose down. So just being there in traction, laying there, unable to do anything, it was devastating. I couldn't, it was bad. I was glad that I was able to see him, I'm thankful really for that opportunity to do that.
If a tragedy like that had happened today, it probably would have been easier for Northington to cope. But back in 1967, he felt like he just didn't have a strong enough support system.
We were roommates, and then for the next, 38 days when he was in the hospital, paralyzed, then it was like I was all alone. It was just me. I think that, looking back now, at the time I didn't really realize what was going on, but in retrospect, now today, if something happened like that, we would get counselors, that would come in and talk to the players. We would do this. None of that happened back then.
Northington said that he was also disappointed that Kentucky hadn't brought in more African American players, something that was promised to he and Page when they were signed. Northington said he and Page even left campus briefly before the 1967 school calendar began, before eventually returning.
Greg and I had became disillusioned because we just felt like they weren't really recruiting, African Americans the way that they had told us they were going to do.
And Page's death was the only tragedy that the team had to deal with that season. Just 2 weeks after Page's death, freshman Cecil New was left a quadriplegic, suffering an injury in practice. And 13 other players had knee surgeries that year as well.
It was almost like we had a dark cloud over our head at UK.
Bradshaw tried to convince Northington to remain in Lexington, and Northington considered it. To this day, though, he's thankful that Hackett and Hogg followed his advice and stayed the course at UK.
Sometimes you can do something and that's it for you. You may start something, and yeah, I wish I could have finished it and continued on, but I wanted to see them finish it.
Hackett was started linebacker for 3 straight years and became the first African-American captain of an SEC football team. Hackett has been a college football official for the past 24 years and has refereed countless big-time SEC games and bowl games. Northington went on to have a solid career at Western Kentucky before returning to Louisville. He is now a minister and has worked for the Louisville Housing Authority for the past 25 years. Bill Thompson also finished his career at Kentucky and is now a successful businessman in the Dallas area. Each year he coordinates a reunion of players who played for Charlie Bradshaw, Bradshaw's boys, and he's hopeful that Northington will attend for the first time. Charlie Bradshaw resigned following the 1968 season with a career record of 25, 41, and 4 at UK. He had only one winning season, a 6-4 mark in 1965. He coached at Troy State from 1976 to 82 before getting out of coaching. He died in 1999. UK opened the Greg Page apartment housing complex for students in 1979. Ragland thinks Page would have been the perfect fit to integrate the SEC.
I think he would have been highly successful. Why is that? Well, he's a Kentucky boy. He's from Middlesboro. He's all state. He's a good football player. He's well spoken. He's well liked. He moves well with black and white players. He's almost his legend today is among the players. He's kind of forgotten to history, but among those that knew him, he kind of has a mythical legend. He was a golden boy.
UK coach Joker Phillips, a Kentucky native who played football at UK from 1981 to 1984, has a full appreciation for the significance of what his predecessors accomplished.
It means the world to me, and not just they just didn't do it for the University of Kentucky. And again, if you look across the SEC, they were pioneers to this whole league and integrating African Americans in this league. So, you know, I always say we're standing on the shoulders of those guys. I mean, that makes you feel like a giant by standing on those guys' shoulders for all the things that they did. And no one can imagine the things that they had to go through to do that, you know, and that's the thing that's special to me.
When you look at SEC football today, the impact of Page, Northington, Hackett, and Hogg is obvious. The league is dominated by African-American athletes. The integration finally spilled over into the coaching ranks in 2004 when Sylvester Croom was hired by Mississippi State. And going into the 2012 season, there are 2 black head coaches in the SEC, Joker Phillips in Kentucky and Kevin Sumlin at Texas A&M. But many people have either forgotten about or don't understand the legacy that Page and Northington left behind.
Time moves on. You know, life, the page turns. New football players come in, new seasons happen, and
That's what is sad about the history of how strong this conference got, is that the persons who need to be given that credit, Nate Northern and Greg Page, for getting it started, we do get lost in the history.
Northington said the history and the magnitude of what he and Page did really started to hit home as the years have gone by.
Cobb out of the Wildcat.
One of the reasons he decided to end his silence was to share his story with the younger generation of African-American athletes.
You know, to look at all the African-American players is doing that now. For me to look back and say that we were the ones that started that, you know, it's almost unbelievable to me. It really is.
After transferring to Western Kentucky, Northington stayed away from Lexington for the most part. But Phillips invited him back for UK's 2010 home game against Western Kentucky, and Northington accepted.
When I first reached out to him, it was, you know, I was kind of skeptical of doing it, but once we had dinner one night, we went up to Louisville and had dinner with him, and how pleasant of a guy he was, you know. I mean, you always heard how bitter. The guy's not bitter at all. I mean, he has a lot of love for this place, and he understands the things that how he changed the game in the SEC. He understands those things, and he's proud of that also.
Northington said that time heals all wounds, and he harbors no ill feelings toward the UK program. He added that he still thinks about his former teammate and friend, Greg Page, on a regular basis.
Greg, you know, he gave his life. You know, he loved the sport, and, you know, I'm sure that if he was here, you know, he would not undo anything as far as him going to UK, you know, and I'm glad that I went. You know, I'm glad that I had that opportunity to do that, and I'm glad that we had an opportunity to open the door, you know, for a lot of other players.
The SEC as we know it wouldn't have been possible if not for Northington, Page, Hackett, and Hogg, whose bravery and courage in enduring racism set the tone for what has become one of the most popular and profitable markets in society today. They indeed helped turn the page.